Hi, Joe and Lindsay. Thank you guys so much for coming out here today so that we can discuss your financial plan. Here you go. Here's a copy for each of you.
Thank you.
If you want to just go ahead and open your financial plan, if you look at the first page, you can see the table of contents. It lists out everything that we've got in your financial plan based on the main subject headings. Things like cash management, education planning, insurance, asset allocation, and retirement and tax estate planning. At the beginning, the cover letter and engagement letter basically just give a description of what the scope of the engagement is that we're going to be working on. So, what are you guys responsible for? What am I responsible for as the planner? And how are we going to work together to get to that point? It discusses what the different fees are that we've agreed on, as well as just some different things that are important to make note of. You guys can go ahead and read through the engagement letter at a later point and bring back the signed copy to me when you get a chance. The client profile gives me an idea of what you guys are all about. So it kind of talks about your employment, your income, different things like that. This data gathering process for financial planners is really important because while the quantitative numbers are important, such as your stock holdings or how much money you have in different investment accounts, the profile of what makes up you guys is also really important, the qualitative data. You can see on the next page the summary of goals that you guys filled out in that lifestyle workbook that I gave you. Thank you so much for filling that out. It really made it helpful for me to understand what you guys want out of your financial plan and out of your retirement nest egg. You can see that I've divided it up between needs and wants, and within those, ordered them based on the priority level that you guys gave them. So your most important needs are paying for as much of Ashley's college as possible, for having health care when you retire, and leaving a bequest to your family. So those are your three top needs, and then right below that you've got paying for as much of Harrison's college as possible and donating money to charity until you pass away. Below that we've got some different wants as well, such as annual travel or new cars or new home, and then lastly Ashley's wedding. Following that, on the next page we've got the assumptions that are laid out. So these are the things that I followed when I was creating your financial plan. In order to project numbers into the future, I have to have an idea of how I'm going to put a number from today's dollars into future dollars. So these are the assumptions that I made, such as inflation, investment returns, and maybe some things such as your retirement age or your life expectancy. These all helped me to project numbers into the future, and I also entered these numbers onto our software, MoneyGuide Pro. Later on, after we go through this financial plan, I'll show you guys the client portal that MoneyGuide Pro offers. It's a really neat tool that allows us to have an interactive demonstration of how things could or could not change based on different decisions that you make in your financial plan. So if you look at the executive summary on the next page, this basically just lays out all of your concerns that we're going to address throughout the financial plan. Based on your current financial situation, it looks like you'll be able to meet the goals that you've set out. But it's always good to make a few changes. So I've made some recommendations for some different things that I think would make your financial situation even better than it already is. But I applaud you guys so much for the amount of saving that you've already done. You've done a really great job. If you look at the next few pages, you can see some of the different statements that I've included in your financial plan. We start with our 2016 cash flow and net worth statement based on the information that you guys gave me. After that, I did an analysis of your financial well-being, and while it's important that you have about $20,000 of discretionary cash flow, it's also important to look at the way that different things interact with each other in your plan. For example, the total debt that you have isn't a standalone number. If it seems fairly low, that's good. But if your total income is also low and you have more debt than you have income, then that's a problem. So it's important to look at the different ratios and to see where you guys stand as far as how much you're saving every month, how much debt you have, or different things like that. So your liquidity ratio is actually fairly low. You want to have at least 2.5 times your monthly expenses available in something like an emergency fund in the event that something happens. Additionally, I would recommend saving even more because your savings ratio, which is your total amount that you're saving divided by your total income for the year, should be about 10% of gross income. But you guys are at about 5%. So I would try and recommend doubling that savings per year. On the next couple pages, you can see the 2017 cash flow statement and net worth statement that I made based on the assumptions that I had, as well as the recommendations that I made throughout this plan. So to begin with education planning, your number one goal, or one of your top goals or needs, was to pay for Ashley's college, and Harrison's college payments were also pretty high up there on the needs. So there are multiple types of savings plans, covered LESAs, 529s. So you guys already have a 529 for Ashley, which is great. However, hers is a little bit on the riskier side because it's 100% equity. This is a plan that I would recommend for someone who's a little bit younger, a child maybe from ages 0 to 5, because at a time a child is already in college, you want to be able to take that money out of the account. So you want it to be a little bit more liquid and a little more income focused instead of growth focused. So at this point, because Ashley's already in college, while normally I would recommend opening a new 529, at this point I would say go ahead and pay the rest of her college using the money that's in her 529 right now, and then you can use some of the money from the IRA to pay for the rest of her schooling. This will allow the total amount of required minimum distributions that you have, Lindsay, on this IRA to decrease because you'll have a lower sum in that IRA. Additionally, Ashley should definitely consider applying for things like federal student aid through the FAFSA application, which is free, as well as other scholarships that could be based on her GPA or her major. So because Harrison is so young, I would definitely recommend opening a 529 plan for him because you can really capitalize on that growth period that you've got. A lot of times you want to open a 529 in your home state because there's tax breaks that are offered. However, because Texas doesn't have any income tax, there are no tax breaks for opening one in Texas, and the fees are kind of high. So I'd recommend opening a plan out of New York because they have some lower fees. They offer different age-based plans that will grow as Harrison grows in the conservative, moderate, and aggressive risk categories. Based on your household risk level, I would recommend the moderate plan because you guys are at about an average risk level for your household and your age group. You can see a savings chart and a sinking fund chart as well as a savings schedule that I've made to kind of give you an idea of how you should be saving for Harrison's college. So it's going to be about $550 every month. As far as insurance and risk management goes, healthcare was a really important goal for you guys. It was one of the number one needs that you guys had. So making sure that you had healthcare coverage during retirement. So right now you're both covered under Exxon Healthcare, but when you retire, you'll be able to apply, or you'll be eligible for Medicare, which is the Social Security healthcare. So through that, you will have all these different benefits and options, but Medicare doesn't always offer everything. And Joe, because you have diabetes, it's really important that you look into something that supplements Medicare. Fortunately for you, Exxon offers a Medicare supplement plan, so I would recommend purchasing that for you.
So do I need a Medicare supplement?
No, Lindsay, that's a really good question though. Because you have better health and no pre-existing conditions, I wouldn't recommend a Medicare supplement plan for you. As far as auto insurance goes, I recommend that you have $100,000 per person, up to $300,000 per accident, and $50,000 of property damage. For the bodily injury liability, this is over 3 times the Texas minimum requirements, and for property damage, this is twice the Texas minimum requirements. This will allow you to possibly purchase a new car if necessary, or to just really make sure that everybody is okay and covered in this situation. When it comes to homeowners policies, there are a lot of different kinds that you can get, from HO2, HO3, HO5. It kind of can get confusing. So the two most commonly chosen are HO3 and HO5. HO3 is usually a named perils policy, which means that you're covered for whatever is specifically listed in your policy. On the other hand, HO5 is an open perils policy, which means that you're covered for everything except what is specifically excluded. So I recommend getting the HO5 policy because it's going to be a little bit less of a hassle for trying to prove what the cause was of your peril or the thing that happened to your house, as well as more things are going to be covered. Related to homeowners and autos insurance, personal liability insurance is often recommended, but at you guys' stage of the game, I don't recommend this insurance because your car and your home are both so well covered that I don't think that you need any more insurance because you don't have anything like a painting or anything that's really unique as far as physical assets go. Lindsay, for your LLC, your business automatically has a form of liability protection because it's a separate legal entity from you. So if you were sued for anything that happened in your business, it wouldn't go directly to you, it would go to your business, to the LLC. So it has that liability protection already.
What about my professional liability?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So actually your professional liability is going to be fine because of your career path. You're not in any kind of career that will foster any malpractice suits. So the liability shelter that you're getting from that LLC entity is actually great at this time. So moving on to life insurance. Joe, right now you have $100,000 of coverage, and Lindsay, you don't have any coverage. So right now I recommend that, Joe, you increase coverage to about $350,000 more, and Lindsay, I think you're okay at this point. So this is kind of based on the Money Guide Pro life insurance calculator.
So what type of life insurance is the additional policy?
Oh, that's a great question, Joe. So for the life insurance type of policy that I'm recommending that you purchase in addition to your term policy, I'm actually recommending a cash value policy. This just allows you to have something else that you're investing in and a different type of vehicle to help to diversify your portfolio, both in asset type and in sector. You also both have recently expressed some concerns about what would happen if one of you were to pass away, which we've addressed in life insurance, but also what would happen if one of you had a disability. You guys don't really want to depend on your kids to take care of you, and you want to be able to have some of that financial sustainability in case something happens. So I recommend some disability insurance through Exxon, which is offered until age 65, so I recommend a plan until that point for both of you. The premiums will be about $1,900 for that, and that's based on a 26-week elimination period and income replacement of $75,000 for Joe and $25,000 for Lindsay. For long-term care, the premiums and coverage are based off of per diem, which means basically how much money you would be getting per day. So I recommend about $150 per day for each of you, which would come out to about $2,300 annually for the household. After this, in the plan you can find an asset allocation statement, which kind of goes over what kind of assets you're currently invested in, as well as a proposed asset allocation based on your risk levels and more diversity in some different aspects. So right now there's not a lot of diversity either in asset type or in sector. So you guys have a large holding in energy. And this could cause some problems because, Joe, you currently work at Exxon. And because of this, if your stock prices were to go down in your large holding of Exxon, or if the oil market had a problem and you ended up losing your job and your stocks went down, that could cause some really big financial hardships. So Lindsay, although I know you really don't want to talk about selling any part of the IRA, I want you to really think about, where is your father's memory preserved? It's probably not in the IRA. There are probably so many other things that made your father a wonderful person and made him the dad that you'll always remember. And it's probably not these stocks. These stocks are going to do you more harm than good if something were to happen in the oil market. So I would really recommend thinking about repositioning your portfolio. You can see exactly what stocks I recommend that you guys sell based on some different things like expense ratios and performance, as well as what specific bonds or stocks I recommend that you purchase. We definitely want to increase your bond market or your bond holding, because as of right now there are a lot of things like intermediate term bonds that you guys don't have at all. And now for retirement planning, which is a really exciting part of all this and kind of seems like the culmination of everything. So in this part of the plan, we kind of talk about if you have enough money to fund all of your goals. And the Money Guide Pro software goes through a lot of different analyses called Monte Carlo analysis, which basically goes through 1,000 different trials to check, if all these different things were to happen, how would you come out based on changes in the market or different things like that. And you've got about an 83% probability of success with these recommended changes, which is really great. You can also see the way that your cash flow and asset growth are kind of compared on some different charts that they've got to see where your assets fall, as well as how much it's going to cost to cover some of those goals. And while the first one looks like there's enough to sustain your plan, that's for your current situation. So meaning that other important recommendations such as disability insurance, long-term care, they're not part of the expenses that are calculated, so it's kind of understating the amount of cash flows that you have, meaning that your portfolio is compounding at a rate that's higher than it would be able to if you were spending, paying for those expenses like we recommend. So you can see another chart that shows once the recommendations are implemented, what it's going to look like. So something that's kind of different that I would like to recommend to you guys is that you retire a couple years later. So Joe, I would recommend that you retire at age 69, and Lindsay, you at age 61. And I know you had mentioned in the lifestyle workbook that you were very open to retiring later. And I just think this might be better because it allows you to take a little bit more time to save and work towards some of these goals. It gives you a little bit more time with these benefits that you've got, as well as the recommendation that I'm making for Social Security. It gets you a little bit closer to that age that I recommend you begin taking Social Security. Fortunately, you guys are going to be able to afford to fund all of the goals that you have both before and during retirement. These are all outlined both in the cash management section as well as the retirement planning section of your plan. There are some other different things you might want to think about, such as the tax implications of rebalancing your portfolio, as well as the tax implications of any insurance recommendations or education recommendations. I've kind of gone through the impact that this could have in some different ways, just talking about what is tax exempt, what isn't tax exempt, and kind of how you can work through the taxation of different assets. But this is something that I really recommend you talk to your CPA about, because they're going to know a lot more about the specific tax laws, which are always changing, and be able to talk to you guys about that. At the end of the plan, we've got a little section about estate planning. So this estate planning analysis kind of says, if one of you were to die today, how would you be able to handle your estate? I know you've got an I love you will, but it's really important that you look into drafting something that's a lot more expansive than that, because you have kids and a grandchild that are involved in this estate at this point that could be beneficiaries if you'd like them to be. There are also some different things in estate planning, such as power of attorney or medical directives that you should definitely look into. And you guys can read through all the different things that I've discussed that would be important for you to look into and see if you're interested in using any of those. And finally, as you can see on the last page of the plan, we've got a plan of action that I created. This is probably the number one most important part of the plan, because I can make all these recommendations to you, but if no changes are made, then it's all for naught, right? So the plan of action is really important. It outlines what steps you need to take and the priority level and by what dates. So for example, helping Ashley apply for the FAFSA. Joe, I assign this task to you just because we want to make sure that we allocate the tasks pretty evenly. Overall, you guys have done a really great job of saving, and I hope that you have really enjoyed hearing about your financial plan and you're excited to get started working towards some of these goals. I'm always here for you guys, so please let me know if you have any other questions or if you'd like to talk about anything else.